Okay, there we are. To make the opening statement, huh? Well, here we are. It's Stefan Request. You've seen it on HG Marathon Channel a few times before, but this is Endeavor doing new game easy normal ending by himself this time, and he's also upgraded his console to the PS4 Pro, which means things should go a little faster than they did before. Otherwise, Stefan Request.
Alright, and with that, when I'm on my main profile to recheck my settings that I will be using on the actual file, and then I'm going to have to go and make a new account. Although you don't really have to do this anymore, it's kind of a thing I still do, because you're supposed to erase, pretty much start from a clean slate to make sure you don't do the bomb. What was the clean slate again for?
Alright, so this game has system data. It uses it. System data is in data that carries between saves, even if the saves are otherwise completely separate. What it uses it for is this thing called the episode chart. And the episode chart, if you have data from previous playthroughs on it, you can get items that you wouldn't have access to otherwise. So it kind of makes it like a new game plus, even though we're trying to do a new game run, if you use items that shouldn't be available yet. So the rules used to be that you had to do what Endeavor is doing now for every run, but then the PC version came out and there was like no easy way to erase save data whatsoever. So it's been changed to an honor rule where you just have to, well, not really an honor rule, it's still enforced, but you have to not claim any items that you don't have legitimate access to, and you have to tell us when you did, or when you access this menu, so that we can check that you didn't do that. But for the sake of PS4, you can still do the guest account thing, or delete save data, whatever you think is more convenient, so that you don't run the risk of accidentally doing it or anything.
Yep. I will have the bomb do as much as he can in the commentary. I will chime in whenever I do something like really lucky or something terribly unlucky. And I will be doing a save before a very specific boss, because there is a very small chance that he can time stop your whole party and you lose instantly. No way around it. So I don't want that small chance to happen. So if you see me save, that is why. So
Okay.
I will actually begin. I can do the bet start as well. I shall begin in
Alright.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. I will have you do the bet end, if you don't mind.
That's fair.
right away you see the difference in loading times between the OG PS4 and the Pro.
Yeah, the PS4 Pro basically takes 10 seconds off the opening cutscenes, and it does slow down. Well, I won't say it slows down. It's still always going to be faster than OG PS4, but the difference is slowed down a bit because after Chapter 1, you stop getting quite so many loadings. Chapter 1, well, no, this is actually still the prologue. The prologue has a lot of loads, and Episode 1 also has quite a few, so the biggest single chapter advantage for PS4 Pro over original PS4 is just the very start, even though it's quite a short chapter otherwise.
Having a defending enemy on the first turn is not too bad because they just move on the second turn usually.
Yeah, so the first fight is simple in that you can't be damaged. Well, that basically applies to quite a few first fights on easy difficulty, but the main thing that you're trying to do is learn an area of effect attack so that you can do the second fight in the game faster. Sadly, it hasn't been learned yet. But luckily, in easy difficulty, even if he doesn't get it at all, the only time loss will be on this one fight, and it doesn't matter for the rest of the game. You can just ignore learning the area of effect attack after that. Of course you want to get it, save your 20 seconds or whatever, but you'll live if you don't get it. Whereas any other difficulty needs to learn its attack so that it can learn other attacks that derive from that attack.
I will attempt
So this
for it
game,
on the first turn or two, and if I don't get it, I will attempt to learn the 15 SP skill.
yeah, so this game's skill learning is based on what skills you use in a row. And we can learn. Sheena starts with a basic spell attack thing that costs 3 SP, and if she uses that twice or more in a row, she can get the area of effect attack.
That was the perfect setup if I had that skill. Hello? How is that not touching?
And then if you're going, but after you get this area of effect attack or don't get it, whatever, you start going for a different one where you have to use 2 different skills in a row. And for the longest time, we didn't know about, or at least early routes to this game before the English version came out, didn't know that the 15 is that the upgraded version of the like single target skill was actually a thing.
I didn't know I was going to get a double turn, so I accidentally wasted a chance at the 15 SP skill. But it's alright. I had really insane luck about them surrounding me, which saved a bunch of time that could have been lost if I had had to take them out separately. Alright, we got it. We good.
Yeah. So he combines the Charlie Moon skill with the Lunimus skill to get Lunimissimo, which is a 15 SP single target skill. Well, it's not really single target, but you can see that the area of effect that it hits is pretty small, so we generally just consider it single target. You can line it up to hit more. Completely dependent on them playing along.
And that trophy lets you know that it's a new profile.
Yeah, whereas the AoE skill that we were trying to learn on the first fight in the castle was a much bigger area. It's like a giant circle that it hits. Though for New Game Plus speedruns, there is a character with even bigger areas of effect called Repuka. But she's a DLC character only, so we don't use her in New Game runs for the most part. You could do a New Game with DLC run, but it wouldn't really be much different than New Game without DLC unless you're playing True Ending. Because Repuka is not all that useful when she's not though. Her SP bar is just really small otherwise. So since he already has the upgraded 15 SP skill, he doesn't have to really care about anything here, just end that fight as fast as possible.
That was close.
Yeah. squeezing by that enemy is good because after you go into an actual proper cutscene, enemies will like be caught in their just loading phase again for a couple of seconds, so you can, if you get into a cutscene but you're cornered by an enemy, usually get out of it, unless the enemy is completely blocking your path. And that's the first visual novel choice of the game. In this game, there are lots of visual novel choices where if you pick the wrong one, you'll get an immediate game over. You can obviously memorize the choices. And another thing about system data is that it remembers which ones you've chosen, so you can sort of cheese them by having a system data where you've only picked the correct choices and then just always pick the ones that have the tick on them. So that's another reason why we didn't like having system data with the OG rule set, but with the PC version coming out, they're really avoiding that. Yes, Nico, I did say that Rebuka is useful in New Game Plus. I just don't think she's useful in New Game because her SP bar is so tiny in New Game. I might be wrong, of course. Just from a vague glance at what goes on with Rebuka in a New Game run, that's the position I came to. New Game Plus, wherever I get at 909p, that is not a problem whatsoever.
Whoops.
So you can set up the 15 SP skill feeder combo on Sheena, and that will be a decent combo for her for pretty much the entire early to mid game. You generally don't set too many combos just because fights are over so quickly, and a lot of the time you just want to attack with the same skill 3 times in a row anyway, so if you can just quickly mash that skill 3 times in a row, especially if it's the bottom skill on the list, then it can be faster than setting a combo even if you have to do it in several battles. But if you're using the same combo over and over and over, eventually it becomes worth it to set it in the menu so that you can just press X in battle to use it. So yeah, another visual novel. When you get to a scene that has a visual novel choice in this game, you can't do the full cutscene skip, you have to do a slightly different cutscene skip that just goes through all the dialogue extremely fast instead of skipping the whole thing. On the original Japanese 1.0 patch of the game, you could cutscene skip fully and it would take you straight to the choice. But it was probably buggy or something because they got rid of it in later patches. Or perhaps they just wanted to make sure you saw the context before the choice. Either way, there are a lot of problems with running the J 1.0 version, which means that even with being able to skip the visual novel choice cutscenes, it was still slower. And provided he did everything up to this point right, which he did, you're able to one-shot that boss. You need to get the 15 SP skill, and you need to have your magic attack buffed from a previous fight. And finally, you need to get the weapon from the shop for 600 money, which is the only reason you buy it, really. Because, I mean, it does help a little on other fights as well, which basically makes it faster, but just saving that one turn alone is fast enough to make it worth buying.
Because there is a chance that that boss will circle around the entire map to attack you from behind, and that can take upwards to 20 to 30 seconds.
Yeah, and he usually gets 2 turns before you get to act again as well. Helps matters in terms of making the weapon worth it.
Nope.
Alright, so first optional encounter of the run. Nothing too bad because it was a mob to the outspeed, and they can be bad. Well, there is one mob in this dungeon that can outspeed you right at the very end, and it can also block a door and force you to fight it, so that's not very pleasant. And that was the first use of the episode shot. Just then, you get an item called the attack ring, which boosts your physical attack by 100, which is quite a lot. At this point of the game anyway. And we just got the second actual useful character, Al, who is a physical attacker for the most part. And so her getting 100 physical attack speeds up the upcoming fights quite considerably. And Sheena, the first useful character, and also the first character we had, is a magic attacker basically completely. She only has one physical move, which is extremely convoluted to get. And is not worth using at all anyway, because you have to boost your physical attack before you can even use it.
The go grab yourself a drink cutscene.
Yes, 10 minutes into the game you get to a cutscene where you can't do anything for about 40 seconds. It's a little early in the game to be a good toilet break, but we take it for what it is, I suppose. That said, this is only an hour long run, so you should generally be fine without a break. But sometimes you might take the quick break if you're in the middle of a long session of attempts and just feel like it. But yeah, I talked about having two useful characters. There was one character that is completely useless on easy difficulty called Lily. We got rid of her right back in the castle.
Oh dear.
She does not get to attack whatsoever. And apparently I cursed the run because that enemy that I talked about blocking the door that always outspeeds you is blocking the door.
I was thinking about just dodging it, but I was like, I'll just push it out of the way.
Yeah, like, it takes a few times for it to actually move out of the door anyway. You have to wait for it to turn in a direction that would let it move out of the door. And each turn might be like 5 seconds or something. Yeah, and there are also these key items I didn't mention before that you pick up in the game world, and then they usually cause you to get a cutscene in the IRL menu. And the whole game is based around there being connections between things happening in the game world and things happening in the real world outside. And Koshina's trapped in the game world. And a lot of the horror elements of the story are based in things that happen in the quote-unquote real world as well. Obviously there are gruesome things that could happen in the game world, but the game is just throwing a lot of edge at you to do with the real world. For the most part. Okay, so the second boss is actually a fairly big reason why you want the attack ring in the first place. Because it resists magic.
The 10 SP skill there.
Yeah, Al's skills are a little easier to upgrade in terms of you just have to use the same skill twice in a row to get a chance at the upgraded version. And you can do that up to twice to get up to a 40 SP skill, which is one of the strongest skills in the game.
For the optimal run, you want to learn her 40 SP skill, Soul Lance, after the next fight.
Yeah. You just got the 10, the second tier version right there, which is optimal to get turn 1 because it usually means that it's a 1-turn fight like it was there. So unfortunately there wasn't too big. And another VN choice as you leave. Generally, the choices that you make sense, like don't turn your back on enemies and stuff like that. But sometimes, particularly later on, the game will make you make a choice that will be like, wouldn't that get you killed? There is one in particular like that at the end of Chapter 4. but we'll get to that later. So if an enemy is just running at you like that, you can just symbol attack it by pressing... I don't even remember the button anymore, but you press the button, symbol attack it, and you can get a speed boost out of it. It can help on boss battles.
So that was unfortunate. I was going to wait for that enemy to stop, but then I forgot about the bird that was behind me, so there was no way out of that one. Now coming up is the best cutscene in the game, right? Right?
Yes, the best, and also
the only save I will do in the game that I would not normally do in a run.
yes, this is the best cutscene in the game coming up because it requires you to actually mash through text. See, what normally happens is that you have the cutscenes, like I said, you can skip any cutscene that doesn't have a VN choice in it. You can fully skip it. And that includes cutscenes that are based in like the game world, where it shows you the game models and stuff still. But those cutscenes you can't use like the non-complete skip on. And so if you ever get one of these cutscenes that's based in the game world, so you can't use the complete skip, but so you can't use the text skip. But it also has a VN choice, you can't use a complete skip, you end up having to mash through text. Thankfully this only happens once in the entire game, and this is it, but it still sucks. And then after that one special cutscene is a more normal VN style cutscene with a choice. Actually, two of them in a row. Because there are other cutscene heavy for the game. At least in terms of cutscenes that you can't full skip. The other problem with this part in particular is that there's a really long cutscene that has a choice right at the start, so you still have to watch the rest of it even though the choice is already over. Because it doesn't really care when the choice is a cutscene, it just doesn't let you skip it full stop.
Now that I think about it, I could have saved right here.
Yeah, oh well.
Yep. Hindsight and whatnot.
So, we got a third party member, Claire. She's not really going to do anything significant at all. But she's slightly less useless than Lily, so hooray, I guess. Maybe not. And Sheena's the one who does the most damage to this.
My brain had a fart, in case you're wondering what happened there.
Yeah. That boss that he just killed was completely magic phased. And easily dies to magic. Or doesn't take much damage from physical anyway. So no 40 SP skill, but that's fine. Generally not a problem as long as you play the outgoing fight correctly.
A really big reason to get the 40 SP skill is a fight that is coming up. It is still possible to one and or two turn it without it, but you are required to basically learn it while you're using your 10 SP skill combo.
Yeah, I mean you can get the one turn if you learn it, and you can get two turns if you don't learn it. But if you two turn the upcoming fight, then yeah, if you get the two turn fight, then you have to heal Al in the middle of the fight to be safe usually, which is like the one time you'll ever use a healing item in battle in easy difficulty.
Take a moment to just say I never had an enemy to the left of me there.
Yeah. The character that Nico is going on about in chat is another character that we never use at all in easy difficulty new game run, Lucille. Player is definitely better than Lillian. Lucille, at least in terms of battle. But in new game, there isn't really... You don't really get the time to make her good. just because you've already got you've already got 2 characters that have decent skills, and you're going to get a third that comes with her good skills already learned right off the bat, and that's a full party already. And in easier difficulty, you don't really need to optimize your party to have the absolute best characters, so having 3 characters with their best skills just is enough, and you don't need to care about Claire. But Claire, once she gets her final bullet skill, is really good. It just takes too long to get an easy difficulty.
Now we get some chillaxing music for the next couple of minutes.
Yeah, the forest you collect... Well, the forest first visit is just about a teleporter puzzle, basically. To start with, you get this elf guidance that lets you cross one bridge, but that's it for the elf guidance for the now. And then the rest is a teleporter puzzle where you... Well, not even really much of a puzzle. You just need to remember which ones you've gone for already. There's only really one that you can go for at any one time. You need to go through these teleporters to reach switches that unlock other teleporters.
It's like this game's version of the Lost Woods, but it's not like really that hard to learn at all. Especially with the little shortcut that we do in the run that skips a teleporter.
Yeah, also, you can see which teleporters you've already used on the map. Like, whenever you first enter a teleporter, it gets marked on your minimap, so if you're trying to find a teleporter you haven't gone to yet, you just look for the teleporter that isn't on the minimap. And that makes things pretty simple. They also all get unique colors on the minimap. So if you did have to use the same teleporter twice, you could write it on the notes, like go into the red teleporter for the second time.
Here's the skip right here. Just fall off this tree. Boom. You skip the use of the third teleporter. Whoops.
Alrighty, so coming to the end of the first screen of the forest, there is a second screen which is visited in this chapter, and again that's a fairly linear screen where you just go all the way around the screen to retrieve an item, so you can go back to the start of the screen and unlock a bridge. So kind of like the opposite of where last time there was the puzzle and then the bridge. Well, last time there was a bridge and then the puzzle, this is the other way around. This time the puzzle eventually leads to the bridge.
Yep, and this is what DeBon was talking about. All this way to get a weird key, just to warp back to what? To that area at the start. It would be nice if we could find a way to skip that roundabout.
Alright, so I accidentally hit a Discord update button. Well, of course I wasn't gone for it. Great thing to do in the middle of a commentary. Just disconnect from Discord for 5 seconds to do an update.
Gotta keep up to date, man. Oh, this ain't good. Gonna squeeze fight? Oh, wow.
Yeah. Unless he's coming straight at you, you can generally dodge him without too much trouble. And he'll only be coming straight at you if he's pointing a very precise angle. So, Repuka, this fight is not meant to be winnable, but because the stats for enemies are so low on easy, it is winnable. Oh, it's going to be difficult to win now. It is still possible, but You just need to revive and try again.
Oh, I didn't think of that. Okay, I'll do that next turn. I was just
Yeah,
gonna do
so
the
for
guarding
now,
version. What was the revive item?
bottom, well, not bottom, second to bottom ultra over. Oh, right, but you get all those status debuffs I think, because you died to corruption.
Well, I don't know about this. Maybe I should guard.
Yeah, maybe just. Or.
I'll guard. Very unfortunate.
Yeah, so the summary of what just happened is that he screwed up. There is no real other way to put that. He ran into an extra bug on the ground which made his corruption value for Al go over 100%, and when that happens, the character dies. And also when you revive them, they get every status effect. So they become pretty useless until you both revive them and cure all those status effects. But winning that fight, it's completely optional. The only thing which you need to do is not completely wipe to it.
I did the wrong thing. I am now all screwed up because of that.
Yeah, again, you'll live because it's easy difficulty. Like, every fight in the game is balanced around you not winning that previous one, but if you can win that previous one, it gives you a nice level boost, which can make things faster.
Oh, skill still, of course.
Well, it's not like Claire can do much damage here because she only has her very first skill. Still sucks regardless though. Anyway, that fight's over anyway. And you can see he leveled up to like level 40. If he had won the previous fight, he gets leveled all the way up to level 60 instantly. And that does make some fights a little faster. Surprisingly not by as much as you'd think, considering it's a 20 level gap, just because easy is so easy that even without the 20 level gap you can one-shot most fights. Or at least one round most fights. But yeah, so now the rest of the run will be a little slower just because at this point we're used to winning that fight most of the time, so he's gonna have to remember how to do stuff without having won that fight a little different.
It will change the next dungeon's turn order. That's not too bad though.
Yeah.
Now coming up here is part that is a nightmare for casual. I myself got every choice wrong. And when you get a choice wrong, you go all the way back and have to do those 2 boss fights again.
No, you can save before the first choice, but you have to. Like, if you don't save in game, because we haven't mentioned this because it's not relevant at all for the speedrun, but in this game you can usually save during a cutscene. The only time that you can't is generally when you've already fought a boss battle, and I don't want you saving after a boss battle for whatever reason. But in this case there are these 2 choices back to back. One of them has 3 choices, so if you're just blind guessing which one is correct, then you can be wrong quite a lot of times in a row before you finally get through. But thankfully they allow you to save in the middle of cutscenes.
So I am both behind on levels and skills.
Yeah.
Which is really bad. Well,
probably not actually
really
that big of a deal.
Right now Al is completely useless, and we like her to be somewhat useful at this point. I'm going the wrong way. I know I'm going the right way.
I mean, you're going the right way, you didn't view the cutscene. Yeah, I reckon Al will be fine if you just use the Soul Sphere times 3 on the battle with 3 of them. So to give context to what I just said, in this temple you have to fight 4 mini-boss. Not even really mini-boss, they're just like slightly stronger enemies. You have to fight 4 scripted battles where you fight 1 of an enemy, 2 of that same enemy, and then 3 of that same enemy, and finally 4. And the way it works out in terms of their positioning, if you have a character that's either the new character we just got, Celica, or Al, you can normally kill up to 2 of them at once. So how it works is you have to use only 1 character for the 1 and 2, and then the 3 you normally have to bring in another character to clean up the final one. And in this case, Celica, because we didn't win the Rafika fight, Celica will be the one that acts first. For the first couple of battles, and then she'll take care of 2 of the 3 enemies in the 3rd battle. And ideally what happens after that in the 3rd battle is that Al will clean up the final enemy and then learn her final skill there as well. And if that all works out, then things should be fine from there on out. If not, then could start losing turns, because Sheena can't really kill the enemies at all. But we will see how it goes anyway. The temple is also one of the most important places to dodge enemies. It is also very RNG based on whether you can dodge some of them or not, but there is a lot of strats you can do to mitigate some of the enemy, like doing precise movement to get through certain enemy cycles faster, or getting past them without getting an encounter at all. But some of them are just RNG whether they're blocking a door or not, and it's not really anything you can do about that. So far, I think that he's mostly avoided having the enemies randomly block doors, although it's been tight a couple of times. And you have to view these cutscenes to unblock certain passageways, same as always. So okay, this is the battle with 3 enemies.
I missed.
Very well, this could be real good too. Well, still no skill, but that's fine because Celica got a time stop on the enemy that Endeavor missed, meaning that our enemy didn't get to take a turn anyway. So every character has a skill that has like a chance of activating at the end of every turn they take. Celica's one time stops enemies around them, around herself. It's kind of like a 50% chance to activate it all, and then it still has to land status effect. It's not a guaranteed status effect or anything. So that frog went viral. It's slow, but not a huge stun. When an enemy goes viral, they also generally take more damage from bouncing off the walls like that, so even though he accidentally used attack for the final turn, he was able to finish it off by just bouncing it against the wall.
No, I did it just hoping that the bounce off the wall would finish it.
Yeah. Well, accidentally or not accidentally.
It barely worked in the favor. I bet he just probably, if he had 10 more HP, it wouldn't have worked. I still haven't learned that enemy yet.
Yeah, for that enemy, you need to get good to dodge that enemy on the way back. That fish, you need to get good movement up to that point. Then you need to bait him into a corner and go around him. If you screw up any one little part of the process, then you'll generally get an encounter. But since Endeavor only just came back to the game, it's worth doing it that way. Or since Endeavor only just came back to the game, he doesn't really remember the
This is
precise movement.
this is one fight where it is actually faster to not beat Rapuka. I mean, it's obviously slower in the overall sort of thing, but it's faster because Celica can one-shot that boss, and Al can't. So you'll want to end Al's turn to go to Celica, but if Al's faster from the fight with Rapuka, then you'll just waste a little turn, ending, moving on to Celica's turn. So it's not all lows if you lose to Rapuka, but it is definitely more low than high.
Mm-hmm.
Way more low than high. Like, that one little tiny instance is not even close.
Okay, so now you start fighting the corrupt party members. Starting with Lily, and you fight almost everyone else. The only two that you don't fight are Sheena and Claire. And the deal with these fights is that generally they will null one element completely, and when someone attacks them with that element, they actually just instantly counterattack and cancel out that attack. And it's generally actually the element they'd usually be weak to. So this creates another circumstance where, for this one fight, losing to Rapuka is faster than winning, because if you try to attack with Al is Sun Element. Sun Element is the element that Lily is weak to, because Lily is Star. So you go slower if Al moves first, and Al moves first if you win the fight with Rapuka.
Oh yeah, I did
So
forget that this is the last fight where you save a tiny bit of time over losing or over winning.
After this fight, Celica levels up enough to where she outspeeds Al regardless of whether you won or lost against Rapuka. And so that's where that little thing ends. Although, to be fair, the next fight is also going to be against Al herself, so Al gets removed from the party anyway. So at the moment, I think you're still short on Sheena's 85 skill.
Yep.
Yeah. So there is one more option that can be taken, get another chance at the 85 skill before the fights where you actually want to use it. I'm not sure if Endeavor's going to do it or not. But it would basically do the next boss battle, L1. You guard with Celica and attack with Sheena, and that gives you a chance at it. But otherwise, you kind of just have to start losing time. I mean, obviously, not attacking with Celica and wasting time to attack Sheena instead is also a time loss. It could save time later. You can't do that on L2. Like, you fight L twice in a row. You can't do it on the second phase, because the second phase nulls Moon, because it's so weak. Yeah, so this place is evil in a couple of ways. Number one is that there's a bunch of tight corridors, and you have to dodge some really big enemies like those horses, and generally if a horse is facing you, when you get to it, it's better to just take the encounter. And that was done once. And there's also that one room where you have to jump over an invisible floor. And you can press a button to make the girl on the chair, Lucille, that we've never used in battle, make her use her skill to reveal the floor, but it's not fast to do that. I mean, it only loses a couple of seconds, so it's better to use it than to fall, because falling costs almost a minute on at least an original PS4. Not sure how much it loses on the Pro. But if you can do the maze without revealing the fawn, it's definitely a lot faster. So in this run, Endeavor slowed down slightly to make sure he got the jumps. He does try. He has tried to learn the puzzle so that he can do it without ever slowing down. But obviously that adds even more risk.
You have to have a lot more hand-eye coordination than I as a player have, because that is probably the tightest jump in Idea Factory history.
Yeah.
I'd
So-
put it even tighter than Fairy Fencer F. Stairway to Heaven.
Yeah, although, like, I'd say Stairway to Heaven jump is worse just because you can't do anything to make it easier. Whereas in this game, you can just reveal the floor to make it easier or just take it slowly, and it's not that bad.
True
But
that.
Stairway to Heaven jump is shit no matter what.
Yeah, they're both, but this one can be made easier with the floor. But if you go after a full-on YOLO, they're both either even, or I'd put this one even worse.
Alright, so this dungeon, the Revisit to Forest, is just a key and door maze. We've gone through several iterations of what we thought was the fastest solution before actually coming up with the real fastest solution. As far as we know. There is a solution in which you can finish it while only picking up 2 keys, but you have to do so much extra movement that it ends up being slower than just picking up 3 keys instead. And so you fought L twice. The first phase is Endeavor did exactly what I said and actually learned the 85 SP skill, which will help out later on. The second phase, she starts countering her weakness. Her weakness is Moon, which is basically Sheena's only element at this point. So you just attack with Celica instead, and Celica overpowers with her really high attack power, even though her attacks are resisted. Sun, Star, and Moon are basically your classic Pokemon Grass, Fire, Water triangle where you resist one and you're weak to one out of the other two, and except in this game you take neutral damage from your own element instead of also resisting it, like you do in Pokemon. We've got Sun being weak to Star, which is no, other way around. Sun is strong against Star, Star is strong against Moon, and Moon is strong against Sun. But generally when you're fighting these corrupt versions of your own party members, at least the final battle, if they have 2 phases, will null the element that they're weak to and instantly counterattack, like I was saying. And with that, it is now time to re-equip the party. Since Al got added back to the party, her gear is reset. And you also finally accumulated enough equipment to make it worth equipping now. And that just happens to happen at the same time.
Yeah, that is still one of about 2 menus I still haven't learned all the way yet, so I took it kind of slow, and I might have made a mistake or two, but it's not like the most important menu if you forget the bangles, as long as I remember the weapons.
So that... You're actually coming back to the ruins for chapter 8, but the only warp point you can get in the ruins is slow. It's much further away from where you actually want to go than just getting that warp point in the wilderness after the ruins and going back into the ruins. It does mean that you usually get blocked by that one enemy that's like a saber beast or whatever, but you can attack it to get your speed back. So the gimmick of chapter 8, and also kind of the chapters after, but not as much, the gimmick of this chapter is these giant enemies. And they have matching giant hitboxes, so you really need to take them slowly and carefully if you want to avoid getting into battles.
This chapter has... You guys saw it right away. It has a big, massive barrier that it will be blocking you from going right to the end, and you can even see the cutscene right there. We tried to find a way to skip it, but we have yet to find anything out. It basically requires the enemies to push you, which they cannot push you in this game. And so if anyone, any fan of this game who can actually has some knowledge and some ideas that can figure out how to skip that barrier, I would like to cordially announce a $20 bounty to find a way to skip through those barriers.
Yeah, I mean, given that the enemies can't push you, there'll probably have to be some other way to clip into the wall, but if you can get through that wall at all, then you can find a way, then you can presumably at least skip a little bit of this chapter. There are some other potential more significant skips, but we have no idea if they would actually work or not after you got through, because we don't know if the event markers that you need to progress the story would actually be there or not. But that one almost certainly would work. End of chapter 8 coming up now. You come to a boss after one more VN cutscene with a choice. You come to a boss that has a bit of a weird mechanic where if you make him go viral, then he takes an absolutely ridiculous amount of damage from being knocked against the walls. And he's also got a really big hitbox, so you can easily get multiple hits against the walls in one turn. But on easy, he is just about weak enough that instead of doing all of that, you can just attack him with Sheena's 85 skill and should die in one turn, especially if you get lucky enough to learn the 150 SV skill on that turn like you did there. That guarantees that the thing will die. Yeah, you can bypass the whole having to pin it against the walls deal. But in normal and hard difficulty, where enemies have 5 times the health as they do in easy, which we didn't mention before, but that is a thing. It's literally a 5 times health difference. In any other difficulty, you just kill him by doing the ping against the wall trick.
Actually, I'm pretty sure what I just did now was muscle memory from a previous route. Let me know if that was from a previous route or if we still do that, so I can know for next time.
Yeah, you shouldn't need a speed buff for the upcoming part anymore, but I think it also depends on whether you got the equipment menu right. So, in these circumstances, you probably weren't wrong to do it, especially because you didn't beat Repuka. Like, between not beating Repuka and not necessarily getting all the equipment correct, I think you made the right call.
One very important thing about this next dungeon, we call it this is the Volcano Dungeon, or the Inferno Dungeon, as that's the name of its theme. Well, even in this area on the way to the dungeon, you don't want to encounter an enemy, like, at all. It is bad to encounter any enemy, so stay away from them at all costs.
Yeah. Whether it's level or speed stat or some combination of both, the enemies in this area and for the rest of the game become extremely hard to run away from. In this place, well, at least on easy difficulty, you can generally run away from the enemies on this place, at least most of the time, and also in chapter 10. But in chapter 11, it's basically impossible to run from any battle on any difficulty. So, at that point, you absolutely need to avoid enemies.
That is another save I need to do. I forgot about that. I will be doing one more save on the way to the next chapter.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, in my PB run, I ran away first try, but that ain't gonna happen again, ever in my life, so.
Yeah.
Whoops.
The volcano usually doesn't have anything that you can't dodge, but if an enemy is facing a certain way, sometimes you have to bait it for a few seconds before you can run past. For the most part, this has been a clean run through them. Didn't have to bait any enemies. This time around. So first up is going to be another rematch with the dragon from the end of Chapter 8. The one that you would...
Ooh, that's not good.
Yeah, you've got the speed buff. So
oh
this...
no!
Yeah, it's fine. You didn't knock him against the wall.
I can't believe he lived though. That what even happened? He's still
Usually... Yeah. Usually you would... So what happens is that the strat there was kind of made for...
wow, incredible.
The
That
strat
was
there was
very
kind of
bad.
made for beating Repuka, and so you'd have more SP, and you'd be able to buff yourself and then use 2 of the 150 skill. But because you didn't beat Repuka, you didn't have enough to do that, so you didn't do as much damage as it was intended, so he lived. I mean, it worked out fine. But it could have been bad, I guess.
Alright, enemy number 1 that can ruin your life is out of the way, and enemy number 2 is out of the way. We're good.
Yeah. So this is the hardest boss in the game, at least on any non-easy difficulty. It still is kind of the hardest boss in the game in easy difficulty too. But it generally
Whoops.
shouldn't be much of a threat.
I'll never remember
And
to do that in a run.
yep, Endeavor is doing the thing that he never remembers to do, which is picking up SP before actually trying to attack. So this fight, it has an absolute crap ton of health, and also nulls Sheena's element, so Sheena can't help with the damage at all. Like, that thing is an absolute giant jump from the bosses before it in terms of difficulty. Doesn't really have a giant weakness, doesn't take much damage from anything, and hits hard even on easy.
Since I don't remember where the save point is in Odyssea, I'm just going to use the one in Snatheus.
Alright, so I guess we're making a save just to make sure that you don't get into any bad
Yeah,
mob battles.
there's one bridge in Odyssea where 90% of the time there's nothing on it, but every now and then there's this one enemy who likes to sneak on the other side. It's like a half circle shaped bridge. So for someone like me especially, I can't see the enemy ever, so I always encounter it if he's on the bridge.
Yeah. Yeah, Rafika also, like, there is just no character in the game that can mathematically one-shot the tentacle boss, even on easy. Like, just because of how the game's damage formula works and how many things are capped at 999. There is no physical way to kill it in one turn. But anyway, this
frick.
boss is a
I did the
much
same
easier
thing as
version.
Rapuka.
Yeah. This is a much easier boss than this Tentacles, even though the Tentacles boss has way more health. Well, even though this boss has more health than the Tentacles boss.
This is what happens when you do what I do.
He is way easier, or he's meant to be way easier anyway.
Yeah, you
Just
can
because-
one-turn him, what I was trying to do. I am skill-sealed or something?
Yeah, you have every negative status effect when you get revived from corruption. Just kill him, yeah. All good. Slow, but win the fight, so who really cares? That fight has more health than the tentacle boss, but he has a giant weakness that you can abuse on the difficulties that aren't easy. On easy, you just pummel him with your strongest attacks like every other boss, but on normal and hard, you can abuse a giant weakness to Moon.
Why am I not reviving her? You people may be asking. Well, we fight her next. She goes berserk.
Mhm.
So it'd be pretty pointless to waste some time to revive her.
Yeah. And the reason I was talking about the tentacle boss not being one-shottable even like mathematically with any chance is that that's just really rare for a net game or any game like this to have a boss that you cannot one-shot by any means whatsoever. Like, even if we don't one-shot every boss, even in a New Game Plus level 909 speedrun, the only reason we don't one-shot them is because it would be slower to set up the one-shot, and there's generally always some way to one-shot them. But in this game, there is just absolutely no way that you can ever one-shot that boss. Which is the difference.
Coming up during the Celica fight, the first fight is easy peasy. You can kill her in one shot by Al. The second time, she goes first, and she can one-shot Sheena, which is slow. We don't want to see that. We want to see Sheena live.
Yeah.
Because we
So
can't. Yeah, we can't attack her with Al on the second fight.
she's Star's element, so she's weak to Sun, which is Al's element. Meaning that on the second fight, she resists. Meaning that on the second fight, she nulls Al's attacks completely. Counters them. But
Also,
anyway,
this fight looks like it's going to be like really difficult, but you'll see what happens. The bomb can also explain technical aspects.
This fight used to be difficult, quote unquote, back in the Z-Fresh route days when he didn't know that you could upgrade your free SP into 15 SP and so on. So he was having to kill it with the free SP over and over. And if you give it enough turns, then it will eventually not so much kill you with damage as corrupt your bar to 100%, and when that happens, you instantly die. But now that we know that we can upgrade the skill, the single target skill from Sheena, multiple times, as long as you upgrade it to at least the 85 one, you can definitely one-shot her. Or one-shot the dragon, rather. And I think even if you use the 15, you have a chance of one-shotting. So, pretty simple fight all in all.
Oh yeah.
Right.
With no absolutely crazy shenanigans, all the problem children have been dodged.
Yeah, so you need to tell me when you kill Repuka. Well, no, you need to tell me when you reach the final cutscene marker, by the way, because I have stream delay otherwise.
Yeah, I know. I'll let you know when it's better endo.
Yeah.
This little section here tests or uses every character's skills, or at least 4 of them.
Yeah.
They're little overworld skills anyway, different from their in-battle skills.
There are places to use all of them in somewhere in this dungeon, but for the speed run, on normal end you only use 3 of them here, and on True End you only use 1 extra one on top of that. You never use Lucille's or Celica's in the speedrun. So, Lucille's is the one that reveals invisible floors, and Celica is kind of like a flight, which is kind of redundant. It does basically the same thing as some of the others, but it just allows you to fly over some gaps.
Now we're a bear and we can't get in encounters.
You can't do anything other than move, you can't even open the menu.
And it is time.
There we go. Just under 59 minutes.
That horrible train wreck was still within the sub-hour mark.
Yeah. To give context, your PB on the original PS4 was above this time, despite all the things that went wrong on this run.
Yeah, my PB on the OG PS4 is a 59:11. I was 12 seconds faster than that, with about 500 more things going wrong in this run than the OG PS4. So, anyone who is wanting to learn this game as a speedrun, and you have a pro, I highly recommend upgrade to the solid state drive over your HDD, your hard disk drive, because it is still slightly faster with a standard HDD, but the solid state drive is really what improves the speed, and solid state drives are not really that expensive, so if you want to learn this game and you want to do it the best you can without PC, because PC is not the master race to you or whatever, PS4 Pro SSD, and you'll get some amazing sick times.
Yeah, the PC version of this game is about the same faster gain as PS4 Pro is over regular PS4. Like, you can finish this category in under 50 minutes with a good run, or at least with a non-completely terrible run.
And with that, that finishes this run. It was a
So,
blast. And what was DeBomb about to say?
yeah, oh no, you go on, because you're probably going to describe what I was going to say anyway. What you're going to do next.
Pretty much right after this, I will be racing Aaron ESP11 and the exact same run. So if you want to see the exact same run again, just hop on over to Endeavor Gaming. Up next in the 12 Days of NEP, which will be tomorrow, I believe.
Yeah, tomorrow in about 2 hours, like, take this time, take 2 hours away. So, like, 2 hours before now, except tomorrow, we'll have the next game.
Which will
And
be
it will be Rebirth 1 Platinum Trophy, all trophies run on this channel, so stick around for that.
and the
Although, even
runner
if you
will
don't catch the
be the
start, I'm
guy
sure you catch part of it.
talking.
And
So,
yes, Tatsuki will do the run all over again, just not on this channel. Although we will host his channel as soon as he goes live. Thanks for watching the 12 Days of Nep run, and catch you all tomorrow, hopefully.
yep. Have a good one, everybody.